You're listening to Legal Talk Network.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Special Reports on Legal Talk Network. This is Laurence Colletti and I'm the host for today's show, which is still being recorded at the 65th ABA section of Antitrust Laws spring meeting in Washington, D.C. We're winding things down. Everybody is heading for the exits. I've never seen so many attorneys going up an escalator before in my life. But I'm sitting here with Mr. Joseph Alioto, came by to say hi to our network, and we got to talk, and we decided that this would be a nice, fun interview. Welcome to the show, sir.
So, well, Mr. Colletti, thanks very much for inviting me. I mean, this is a real opportunity, and I'm very happy to be here.
Excellent, excellent. Well, we did a little pregame so I could get to know you a little bit, and I think that's what we're going to start with.
Okay.
We'll start with your bio. So where do you work? What do you do?
I've been practicing antitrust law almost exclusively for plaintiffs since 1969. And I've had the opportunity and the privilege and honor to argue antitrust cases before the Supreme Court of the United States, before the United States Courts of Appeal, for all of the circuits, and cases argued and tried in the major metropolitan cities throughout the United States, from Boston to Honolulu. So that's what I've done. I believe in the antitrust laws very much, and I believe that they are an extremely important part of and a necessary part of our country. I did want to say one thing, is that sometimes antitrust law has been viewed as a regulation. It's not a regulation, it's a deregulation. If in the government there's any kind of industry that is regulated, you don't like that regulation in the government, you throw as the baseball saying goes, you throw the bums out, right? You elect somebody else and you get that law changed. But you can't do anything when it's private people. And when it's private people, then the only one that works is a private antitrust case or a government antitrust case. And that prevents those people, private people, from regulating trade. They'll regulate trade by fixing prices, by dividing markets, by exclusive dealing, by the uses of leverage and basic old-fashioned monopoly. I want to say one thing too, since we're talking about antitrust.
Yes.
One of the great descriptions of antitrust was done by Justice Thurgood Marshall, and Justice Thurgood Marshall compared the antitrust laws to be as important as the Bill of Rights are to our freedoms and liberty. Now, this is a guy who lived under Plessy against Ferguson. He was segregated. He fought all the segregation cases. He was the attorney who argued Brown against Topeka Board of Education, and of course became a justice of the Supreme Court. And here's a guy who is comparing the importance of the antitrust laws to the Bill of Rights. And I just think that it's an extraordinary statement that he made. It's something to the effect that the antitrust laws in general, and the Sherman Act in particular, are the Magna Carta of the free enterprise system. They are as important to us as the Bill of Rights is to our personal liberty. So it's pretty great statement. Anyway, so that's the business that I'm in.
Well, you sound very passionate about what you do, Joseph, and that is one of the things that was appealing when you came by to say hi. And that's kind of part of why we're here. We tour around. We go to a lot of ABA events. We go to the ABA annual, ABA mid-year. But this is the first time that we're going.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah, no. So this has been terrific.
That's great.
So it's our first visit to the spring meeting for the antitrust section, and I got to say, the caliber of professional here is just top notch. I mean, everybody we've talked to has just been spot on.
That's great.
Absolutely, and you just tell.
That's great. And what we want to do for functions like this, but just in general, we want to try to encourage young lawyers to be a part of the prosecution of the antitrust laws, and I think that it's very important for them to do that. They will find it. Some people think, for some reason, that antitrust litigation is boring and it's economic and there's just figures and economists and everything. That is not the truth. Antitrust is extremely exciting. It involves conspiracies. It involves bullies. It involves monopolists. It involves guys who try to crush out competition because they're afraid of it. And it's extremely, and when you get involved in these cases, you can find, especially the trials, and that's one of the sad things, is that there's not as many trials there are now. Today, there's not very many trials. There used to be a lot. when I first started practicing, let's see, first year I had 3 or 4 trials, and second year maybe 5 trials. Hell, you can't get a trial anymore. But if you go to the trials, you will find that they're very tense. They're very hot because people are, there's a lot of anger and stuff going on in there.
Lot at stake.
Because of a lot at stake. So I hope that young lawyers do get excited about it and do get involved in it, and also it pays well.
Well, let's do that. Well, that's also very important. But
Yeah.
let's do this. Let's do this. You know, you came over. You're sharing a little bit about your career.
Yes.
And you told me how the antitrust section has grown a lot since you were first
Yes.
involved. Like 15 people, you said, when you first got
There were
involved.
very few. Yeah, there was very, very few, and then and now it's quite expansive. There's been a real change in the antitrust laws. I think not to the good part. Where they have viewed, a lot of judges have viewed, and some of the scholars have viewed the antitrust laws in terms of simple economic principles rather than including the very important social and political principles behind the antitrust laws. And I'm going to give you an example.
Sure.
One of the first cases case brought against J.P. Morgan by President Theodore Roosevelt. And J.P. Morgan thought that he was more powerful than the president. And the president, Theodore Roosevelt, sued him. And J.P. Morgan wanted to know, well, why didn't you get your guys to talk to my guys, and we could have settled this without you having to do this? And Teddy Roosevelt said, that's the problem. You think we're equal, and we're not.
Speak while carry a big stick, right?
Yeah, one of the most important aspects of antitrust is that it preserves and creates jobs and innovation. And every time there's a merger, people are fired, innovation goes down the tubes, and the prices go up. But when there is organic or within a company's growth, they create jobs and they create innovation because they have to. And some of the greatest number of jobs in the United States are created by the small business people.
Okay. We talked a little bit about antitrust and the importance of the U.S. economy,
Yes.
but it would be wonderful to learn about some of the cases that you've worked on.
I've had many, many trials. I probably have as many as anybody else ever. But the first, one of the trials that I had, not the first trial, I was still under 30, but the case involved certain cattlemen out of California and the West Coast, going back to South Dakota, Wyoming, Colorado.
Yes.
And other of those states. And I sued for about 10 cattlemen. And we, at that time in 1974, won the largest jury verdict judgment, treble damage judgment, in the history of the antitrust laws up to that time, which was 1890 when they passed the antitrust laws. And then about 10 years or so later, I had the opportunity to represent some young business people who had come up with the so-called TENS device, or the transcutaneous electronic nerve stimulator, which means that if you have pain, you would use this. And Johnson & Johnson, it was against them, and they had suppressed that competition because that device was going to be in competition with Tylenol, especially Tylenol with codeine. And that resulted in, at that time, the largest judgment ever in the history of the antitrust laws for businesses. And then recently, although I'm not generally a class action lawyer, I had the opportunity and was appointed by Judge Susan Ilston in San Francisco to be co-lead counsel.
And that's where you're practicing now, right? San Francisco?
San Francisco. My office is in San Francisco, but I practice law throughout the country.
Okay.
In the federal court. And she appointed me co-lead counsel, and we ended up, although I wasn't able to get to the trial, but we ended up with a settlement of $1.2 billion, which was the largest all cash settlement.
Wow.
For price fixing in a class action price fixing case ever. So that was, 2 years ago. And now I'm challenging some of I do a lot of merger work, trying to stop mergers, especially in the beer industry, the airline industry, the financial industry, the banks, the bankers, and the people that are getting, in my judgment, really hurt by activity that is plainly, in my opinion, illegal.
Okay. Well, you travel all over the country, and you've had a.
Here we are in Washington, right?
That's right. That's
Okay.
right. And you're going to be coming back, right? I mean, you're going to be coming back pretty
yes,
soon.
I come back and forth a lot to Washington, to the East Coast, New York, Atlanta. I go to the Midwest too. I have a number of trials in the Midwest, especially in Minnesota and in Colorado and places like that.
So, you do this work, and you're all over the country. And one of my big takeaways from being part of this conference is, I look around, and obviously they're top-notch professionals, but I think of the influence that all of these people that work professionally in antitrust, the influences they have over world economies.
It's huge.
It's absolutely amazing.
It's huge, and antitrust laws are not liberal laws. They're liberal and conservative. They were passed by the United States Congress with only one dissent, and the only one who dissented against it felt that the penalties were not strong enough. So it is an important part, a very important part of the economy of the United States. It's important to jobs. It's important to innovation. It's important to lower prices. It's important to competition. It's important to the disposable income of American citizens, that they be assured that they have the benefits of competition. No such laws exist anywhere else in the world. We believe in Americans. We believe in competition. We believe we can beat anybody. And that idea is very important. And you cannot allow very strong economic forces and power to try to suppress innovations or newcomers. You just cannot allow it. And you can't allow these guys to try to cheat the American people by fixing prices or dividing markets or excluding competitors.
So what's the most rewarding aspect of your work to you?
I think that the antitrust laws is a very human situation, and I think that it is extremely important to have your trials in front of a jury. I believe that the juries are the representative of the people, and they're the ones that make the judgment. And obviously, that when someone who was not successful, not because they weren't the best, not because they couldn't compete, but because they were suppressed, it's always good to make sure that a new company does not get kicked around, and that the benefits of that company's competition is extended to the people of the United States.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I just have one last question for you, Joseph, before we sign off for the day here. If our listeners, they've been listening to what we've been discussing here, if they want to reach out to you, they have questions, and they maybe about antitrust, thinking about getting into the field, how can they reach you?
I'm in San Francisco, and my firm is called the Alioto Law Firm, and obviously I would be delighted at any stage of the game to discuss any issue that anyone really wants to talk about, and especially young lawyers who might be making decisions as to what they want to do in the future, and in any way I could help them out or encourage them to at least consider prosecuting antitrust cases. I would be delighted to do so.
Well, it looks like we've reached the end of our program for today, but I want to thank our guest, Joseph Alioto, for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Colletti, and I enjoyed being with you.
It's been another edition of Special Reports. I'm Laurence Colletti. Until next time, thank you for listening.
The views expressed by the participants of this program are their own and do not represent the views of, nor are they endorsed by, Legal Talk Network, its officers, directors, employees, agents, representatives, shareholders, and subsidiaries. None of the content should be considered legal advice. As always, consult a lawyer.